Hey everyone, Logan here, and you know, some great franchises never get a second chance, and are doomed to the dead franchise's graveyard. Among these is a very unique platformer that came out in 1995 for the Sega Genesis, and that game is Ristar. With the arm mechanic and impressive visuals, what's not to love? So with that said, on today's episode of Gaming History, we will be exploring this one-of-a-kind game. First, let's cover the history. Ristar's conception started in 1990, where Sega was holding a company-wide competition to replace then mascot Alex Kidd, who wasn't lighting the world on fire. Employees would send in drawings and ideas for a new character that could take on Nintendo's Mario better than they were currently doing. One of the hundreds of drawings that were submitted was a rabbit character that grabbed things with its ears. According to former Sonic series director, Yuji Naka, the rabbit character was nearly chosen as the winner, but ultimately the blue blur won out and became Sega's new flagship character. A few years later, however, the development team that would later end up releasing Nights into Dreams recycled the rabbit idea and created a prototype named Feel. By this time, they changed the character from a rabbit that uses its ears to a shooting star that uses its hands. Also, just look at his design at this point of development. Yeah, I'm glad they changed the design to this instead of sticking with that. Anyways, in various later prototypes, he had slightly different names with the titles changing several times. In some code, he was referred to as Volt the Voltage, possibly explaining the lightning bolt shoes that he has. He was also renamed to Dexstar, and then finally to Ristar. Or was it Ristar? Some people call it Ristar and Ristar. I don't know why they would call it Ristar, but the Ristar is because they say he uses his wrist to grab enemies, but he actually uses his hands, so I don't really get that. And then on the back of the box it says, to catch a rising star, and I've always called it Ristar, like all my life, and thought everyone else did, so I'm just gonna call him Ristar for this video, since he has no official name technically. So anyways, surprisingly, Ristar was actually supposed to be the successor to Sonic the Hedgehog, and therefore becoming the new face of Sega. If this went as planned, we may not have had all the Sonic games that we do today. So, why didn't it go to plan? Well, this all has to do with the timing that Sega released it. Sega released the game on February 16th, 1995 on the Sega Genesis and as well on the Game Gear, which was in retrospect an awful decision. This is because the Sega Saturn was about to release in North America and it was already out in Japan. This led to Ristar not getting any exposure because by this point the Genesis had completely lost steam, and even if a customer did know about it, why would you buy a game right before you bought a brand new console? If you're going to replace your mascot, why wouldn't you reveal it on your new system instead of solely a last gen release? That was honestly a ridiculous decision, and I have no idea why nobody was able to catch that. So, because of this, Ristar didn't sell very well, and Sega higher-ups just assumed it didn't have potential to be a new mascot. So, this is where the story of Ristar should have ended, but surprisingly, even though Ristar was nixed for mascot status, a sequel was planned with multiple playable characters. These characters would place more or less the same as Ristar, but they would have different extendable limbs, such as a mustache or hair. This idea was cancelled early on, however, and Ristar has only made slight cameos and re-releases since. And that is a quick history of Ristar as a character, so with that out of the way, let's get to the meat and potatoes of this review. The two games themselves. As I stated previously, Ristar came out on both the Genesis and the Game Gear. We'll tackle the Genesis version first. Ristar is a game where you play as a shooting star of the same name, on a mission to rescue his father and the citizens of the galaxy Valdi from the evil tyrant Greedy who had corrupted all the planet's leaders. It's fair to note that in the Japanese release, there is no father, and Ristar is just chosen by a character named Aruto to save the people. Graphically, the game looks nice, especially for a Genesis title, and the soundtrack is wonderfully done by Tomoko Sasaki. In this game, Ristar's moveset and controls are a bit different from your average platformer. Your life bar is stars in the right hand corner of the screen. Depending on the difficulty you choose, you can start with either 2 to 4 stars. You could refill your health, get lives, or gain points by hitting various treasure chests around the level, as well as finding secrets in things such as walls. Instead of jumping being the primary function, Ristar instead utilizes his arms, which can stretch in 8 different directions. These arms can interact with a variety of objects, such as grabbing roots to climb, grabbing enemies to attack, swimming, or swinging on star handles. More on those in a second. This mechanic is really unique as it influences you to grab everything in the world to find hidden secrets and solve puzzles. In fact, instead of running like Sonic, Ristar just walks at a reasonably quick pace. For this reason, I recommend not trying to compare this game to Sonic, as they have completely different playstyles. Sonic wants you to blaze through the level as fast as possible, but Ristar wants you to take your time and enjoy the scenery. At the end, and sometimes in the middle of levels, there are star handles. By swinging on this handle for long enough, stars will start to sparkle around Ristar. After letting go of the handle, Ristar will live up to his name and become a shooting star that is invincible and is able to fly around the map for a few seconds. There's also a special type of star handle that will take you to a bonus level that acts as a special stage. In every bonus level, there is a secret item to collect. These items are basically useless now that the internet exists, as they only reveal passwords if you collect them all. But if you get them fast enough time, then you will also get a continue as a reward, so it's worth doing it if you die a lot. Most levels have some sort of gimmick in them, such as the decoy statues in Planet Scorch. Finally, there are passwords, which are only really good for boss rush mode, and a couple other small bonuses. In total, there are 7 worlds to go through, with 2 rounds each. Planet Flora, a grass world simulated green hill zone. Undertow, which is a water world. Scorch, as the name implies, is a fire world. Sonata is a music world that is really creative for the time, and actually it still is really creative. Freon, which is the ice world. Automaton is a mechanical level with robots in a no-gravity section. And the final area is Castle Greedy, where the final boss takes place. All of them have a unique theme and a boss at the end. That brings me to my main criticism. Ristar doesn't have a save system. This is a problem for some people, as the game can be a bit long if you want to go for all the secrets. Also, it strikes me as odd that they didn't add one, because Sonic 3 had one and it came out a year earlier. It's whatever though, and not too big of a deal if you're just beating the game normally. Overall, Ristar is a really fun romp to go through, and I really want them to bring back the series in one way or another. I definitely recommend this to anyone who's interested in it. If you do want to take the leap, there are several ways to play it today if you don't have it on normal Genesis. If you have a phone, you can download it for free on the App or Play Store via Sega Forever. You can get it in Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection for last-gen consoles. Or, if you're a PC kind of guy, it's only 99 cents on Steam. One quality of life improvement is that if you go the Steam route, there are save states, which takes my main complaint away. So yeah, that is about all I have to say about the Genesis version, but we aren't done with this video yet, since we still have the Game Gear version to get through. So let's get started with that. The Game Gear version of Ristar is extremely similar to the Genesis version, with about 75% of the game being exactly the same, albeit with 8-bit sound and graphics now. Scattered around the world, there are now stars to collect. They essentially act as the Mario series coins. If you collect 100, you are rewarded with an extra life. There are now unique enemies, and when defeated, you can pick up their weapons to use, such as a helmet to throw at enemies, or a spear to use as a platform. Special stages are now accessed by collecting an orb in a level, and then beating a boss. The stages are a bit different here, as it tasks you with collecting stars in the levels without falling down pits. Trampolines will bounce you upwards to collect these stars. Passwords return, and they act as a save system this time around. After you lose all your lives and hit give up, the game will give you a password to return to your game later. This is much better, and it confuses me why they couldn't have at least included this in the Genesis version. This time around, there are 6 levels to explore. Planets Undertow, Scorch, and Freon are gone from this version, and have been replaced with a single-round Planet Terra, which is a pirate level, and Planet Freon. Despite having the same name, Freon is pretty different. The first round you still explore an ice area similar to the 16-bit version, but the second round is completely different, where you traverse the inside of a clock. Game Gear cartridges are region-free, and if you play Ristar on a Japanese Game Gear, Planet Terra actually does have 2 rounds, with the first one being similar to a Jack and the Beanstalk type level. Speaking of the Japanese version, every level in the English version, aside from Castle Greedy, has a different name in the Japanese version. This also applies to the Genesis version as well. As for the rest of the levels in the Game Gear version, there are minimal differences here and there, such as the 16-bit version Planet Scorch boss making an appearance as a mini-boss in Castle Greedy, and blocks being in the way, requiring you to use a star handle to get past them. Aside from these small changes, the game is basically a replica of the Genesis version. The controls are good, and the game plays very well on the Game Gear. So that leads to the question, Which version of the game should I pick up? Well, you can't go wrong with either one, but I personally recommend the Genesis version. The levels and controls are a bit more refined and fleshed out. The Genesis version is more accessible than the Game Gear version, with the Game Gear version never receiving any ports on any other console. And the Genesis version has the most enjoyable experience in my opinion. But if you still have a working Game Gear and really like the Genesis version, then consider picking up the Game Gear version as well, since it is still a really great game. Regardless of which way you swing, you are sure to have a great time with this one. And that is the basic history and review of the fantastic game Ristar. I hope you at the very least found this video informative, and if you do decide to take the plunge, I genuinely hope you enjoyed the game. This is about all I have today, so I'll see you guys next week. Take care.